You know, the most challenging aspect of gardening is knowing what to buy. Going to a local garden center can sometimes, well, be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to make your head spin. So I thought what we would do is head to a local nursery and I'll show you a few tips on how to shop and what to buy. Let's go. Visiting your local garden center during the growing season can be really exciting. The number of plant combinations and plants, well, they can really get your juices flowing. All this excitement can be a lot to take when it comes down to choosing the right materials for your garden. So what if we take some of those anxieties and channel them into some tips that can help you have a more blissful and successful shopping experience? The first thing you should have in mind is, where do you want to plant? And perhaps, what kind of design are you thinking about? And also, how much time can you dedicate to gardening? And of course, what's your favorite color? Trust me, by doing just a little planning, as I've described, it's going to put you way ahead. It's going to save you a lot of time and headaches in the long run. Now, I'm sure most of you have one of these. You see, it's really nice to have some pictures on hand of the locations you're wanting to plant. Use it to compare color combinations around your home and garden. It's also a great tool to help you keep up with the dimensions of your flower beds or even the number of containers that you need to get potted up. Oh, look at you. In you go. Okay, take a look at this. If a garden center were a classroom, what you have with the tag and the plant is the ultimate cheat sheet. As simple as it may seem, the plant tag contains all the vital information you need to know about that plant. This tag has covered the basics like the common and botanical name. One of the most important elements of information listed is the zone, which is particularly vital when considering perennials or shrubs. Does this plant do well in sun or shade? How much space does this plant need? Using the information on the plant tag can really help you narrow down your selections. Once you've narrowed down what works best for your garden, it never hurts to give the plant a look over. For annuals, look for darker foliage and well-branched upright stems. This indicates good health and proper fertilization. And a tip for when you get home, the way to maintain that dark foliage is to feed your plant every third time you water it. This boomerang lilac looks great, and it's coming home with me. Thanks, Iggy. Here's one more tip. If you want to have a more relaxed experience, visit your garden center on the off times. I find that coming on a weekday is often the best time to shop. There are less people, garden center staff is more available to answer your questions, and your selection of plants, well, it's usually greater. Plus, by shopping on the weekday, there's nothing like waking up on a Saturday morning, knowing you have everything you need to start your garden project without having to leave the house. So get out there and take your garden center by storm. And remember, flowers make life more beautiful. Coming up, your plants have what it takes to go for the gold?
I don't want to see a sprinter. I want to see a long distance runner.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
I get it, yeah. And later, keeping it cool in the shade. Plants, just like Olympic athletes, have to go through rigorous trials, and even then, they may not be able to make the cut unless they go through the proper preparation and conditioning to be a gold medalist. Our journey starts in Costa Rica, where the training season begins in January to be ready to perform in your garden by spring. It has no real summer or winter, with an average temperature around 75 degrees. Costa Rica creates the perfect growing and training grounds for prospective champions. John, I just cannot believe the kaleidoscopic color of all this sun coleus here in this greenhouse.
Yeah, there's without a doubt, there's lots and lots and lots of plants.
Help me understand how it all begins.
What breeders do is they bring us the material, we put it into a trialing process against everybody else's breeding. You know, coleus to coleus. I don't want to see a sprinter, I want to see a long distance runner.
I like that analogy, I get it, yeah.
We'll go through and screen them, remove any viruses, make sure that the plant is naturally going to perform. And then once we have that plant clean, it gets put into a massive operation like this. You know, they may bring us a single plant and we're able to produce 600,000 units after 3 years.
That's fantastic. Here, you're actually taking cuttings of the plants that will be sent out to growers around the country.
Correct. We do quality control, make sure that I harvested all the cuttings the right size. We have the very best built into that cutting. But then it needs to go to a proven winner grower where they put on the roots and tone that plant to the environment that it's going to be sold at.
For these tiny little cuttings, the journey continues at one of the 5 proven winners propagators in North America.
Cuttings have arrived and we're not ready to stick them.
So the little athletes actually go through a sauna like this when they arrive.
It's all about rehydration.
I bet.
So what we're doing here is simply taking those cuttings, putting them in a very fine soil mix.
Yeah.
And this is what we call a liner tray, and each one of these individual cells is called a liner or a plug.
Sure.
And the idea is that within 4 weeks, under the proper environment, we can get roots. These plants will be rooted.
Fully rooted in 4 weeks.
Fully rooted in 4 weeks. Then the product is toned and then shipped to a garden center or a greenhouse.
We take them from little tiny cuttings all the way up to big, beautiful hanging baskets. So from start to finish, I grow them.
Wow, John, look at all this color.
Isn't it amazing?
Oh gosh, and they're one of my favorites.
It's made the journey.
It has.
Vista bubblegum, outstanding plant.
You know, I'd call this athlete a gold medal winner.
Absolutely. What the nice thing is, we've seen it tracked it all the way through, for the mother plant all the way through, and what's nice is it's charged, ready to go for someone's garden.
It's marvelous. John, thank you so much for carrying us along the journey and how these plants become proven winners.
My pleasure, Alan. Thank you.
Can't wait to get some of those in my garden. After the break, turn those shady spots into colorful additions to your garden. The next time you go to a garden center, step over into the dark side. Now what I mean by that is that area where they keep some of the shade-loving plants, like this part shade-loving Hydrangeas called Catalina Pink. You see, shade plants have figured it all out. They're loving life out of the rays of that scorching sun, and who can blame them? When it's hotter than a billy goat in a pepper patch. I like to spend my time in shady spots too. Plants that thrive in the shade depend on lesser levels of sunlight as a means to survive. They're far more efficient utilizing the far red light that streams through the canopy. Far red light is light at the extreme red end of the visual spectrum, between red and infrared. Most of these plants develop broader, thinner leaves to catch more sunlight with less cost. Sometimes shade can be improved by simply trimming off the lower branches of cover trees and shrubs to allow a little more light to get through. There are many plants that thrive under trees, but if you've gardened in the shade before, you know that shallow-rooted trees, well, they can be a challenge. You see, there's more competition for water and nutrients for shallow-rooted trees rather than planting under more deeply rooted ones. By taking your shade-loving plants and planting them in containers, and either placing them in the ground around trees or setting them on top of the ground, that's a great way to keep them from losing the battle for resources with a big tree. But if you do this, you need to make sure that you don't let them stress out due to drought. Keep them watered. Now, I've known some people who've had the big idea of building a raised bed around the foundation of a tree, but be aware that installing a raised bed like this over those tree roots will likely kill the tree, or at the very least, lead the roots to expanding into your new soil. Hey, love azaleas? I do. Take a look at this one. It's called Bloomathon Red. It reblooms. And one of my all-time favorites, Hydrangea, Invincible Spirit. While of course this is a shrub, think about some great perennials such as Hosta, Shadowland, Empress Wu, Coral Bells, Dolce Heuchera. And going back to annuals for just a moment, this is one of my favorites, Euphorbia Diamond Delight. And I'm sure it could be one of yours as soon as you give it a try. Just look at all of those thousands of frothy little blooms. Some other annuals that'll make great additions to your garden include Begonia Surefire Red or Surefire Rose, Impatience Rockapulco. Just look at those little rose-like blooms. Oxalis Charmed Wine, and Coleus Color Blaze Lime Time. Just look at that electric chartreuse color. Whether you use annuals, perennials, or shrubs, you can brighten the shady areas of your garden with any of these vibrant varieties. So as you can see, there's really no reason why your garden shouldn't look just as beautiful and lush in the shade as it does in the sun. There's so many beautiful varieties to choose from that bring color and texture to your garden. Hey, with all these varieties, you'll soon be pulled over to the dark side. Enjoy your garden. Next, no matter where you live or what you're planting, everyone's garden needs a strong foundation to be successful. Don't go away. Whatever you choose to put in the ground won't amount to much without the right soil. It's just basic. So what exactly makes a healthy soil? If your home's foundation is important, then your garden, well, the soil is its foundation, and believe me, it's very important. Getting the soil right isn't as difficult as you think, and once you do it, it's there. All you have to do is amend it each year a little bit, and hey, you're off and running. First of all, decomposed matter, compost. What's wonderful about organic matter is that it holds moisture. It's also the perfect environment for beneficial microbes. And also, if you've got a really heavy clay soil, it can break up those clay particles so that, well, the roots can grow through it and you can actually leave air pockets. Let's talk about mineral particles. A lot of clay has a lot of minerals in it. Fertilizers. If it's a good blend of an organic fertilizer, you're going to get plenty of those minerals in there. The other thing I want you to think about is air. I don't mean air up here, I mean air down here. Look at all the spaces in this. Just look at all of the, it's not packed soil, in other words. This provides health, not only for the plant's roots, but for all of those little microbes that are alive in the soil. The next element is moisture. Your plants need water. That compost helps retain water in the soil. With these type plants, I'll fertilize them with a granular fertilizer about once a month, but I also use a dilute form of a water-soluble fertilizer, and each time I water, I give them a little food. Because with these containers, as you constantly water, you're flushing out the nutrients. So just keep that in mind. And have some fun. Isn't that beautiful? I did it myself. Up next, having healthy hydrangeas is easier than you think. Stick around. As the most Googled plant, the hydrangea has to be somewhat of a mystery to most beginning gardeners.
How do you know about them? Elementary, my dear Watson.
First things first, there are 6 main types of hydrangeas that are grown by gardeners in North America. These would include the big leaf, also known as mophead, and also the lace cap falls in this category. Then there's mountain, panicle, smooth hydrangea, and of course the oak leaf. These are primarily identified by their leaf and bloom characteristics. As you can see, hydrangeas come in a wide range of shapes, sizes, and colors. 2 of my all-time favorites are smooth hydrangeas, Incredible and Invincible Spirit. Both of these plants produce big continuous blooms all summer long and are very heat tolerant, a necessity here in Zone 7. An essential southern plant, most hydrangeas can take the heat as well as can be cold hardy up to Zone 5, which is around Des Moines, Iowa. Smooth and panicle hydrangeas such as Limelight and this variety called Bobo are as hardy as up to zone 3, which takes you up into northern Minnesota. I think hydrangeas are fascinating. Unlike most plants, the color of their blooms can change dramatically. Some will change naturally from white to green or even a burgundy color. Others, including big leaf and mountain hydrangeas like Let's Dance, Starlight, and Tough Stuff, are even controllable by altering the pH and aluminum content in the soil. Now that we've identified some of the varieties of hydrangeas, let's talk about their care. Hydrangeas, of course, need sunlight. At least 4 hours of sunlight a day, preferably morning light. When it comes to moisture, they love plenty of moisture. You want to make sure that the soil stays consistently moist because they're shallow rooted and are prone to dry out. That's why I like to apply a nice layer of mulch around them. But they require good drainage. And when it comes to pruning, it's important you know your hydrangea's flowering habits. You see panicle and smooth hydrangeas flower on new wood growth, so you can cut them back in the early spring or late winter before new growth begins to emerge and still get plenty of flowers that summer. Big leaf, mountain, and oak leaf flower on old wood, so try to avoid pruning these altogether. You see, they set their flower buds immediately following the bloom cycle. Pruning these back would remove the buds already in place. In general, hydrangeas will grow and flower well by just removing the spent flowers and any dead wood each spring before the new growth begins. The main thing to remember is just have some fun and experiment with several of these different varieties in your yard. Want to learn more? Visit palensmith.com for delicious recipes, garden tips, blog posts, and our online store. Well, I hope these tips are a help to you. They've certainly served me well over time. The main thing is go into that garden center with a plan in mind, shop with confidence, shop like a pro. Hey, who knows? In time, you may end up with your own gardening television show. Until next time, happy planting. I'm Alan Smith.